It's good to have friction. It's good to have friction because that's how you grow, but it has to be 5-to-1 ratio type of situation. So you have to get the pleasant to the unpleasant things, and those unpleasant events is a learning opportunity for growth, because that's how you grow when you go to the gym. You have to put the stress in order for the muscle to grow. Same with the relationship. There has to be some stress, but it has to be of the beautiful enemy type of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really good. I don't know about Brian, but I love that beautiful enemy. Somehow that word always click every time I hear it. Just reminding me, okay, we chose to have enemy, but we can choose to have beautiful enemy, you know? Yeah. And yeah, this just the word beautiful enemy is just simply beautiful to me. And we got a chance to learn the beautiful enemy in our MA program as well, also in the certificate program. Yeah.
Because remember that if it is not a beautiful enemy, it's just a plain enemy. So it is only a conflict. It is not a constructive conflict. So you want to create constructive friction, not just friction by itself. And that's what they said about Winston Churchill, never lose the opportunity of a crisis, because a crisis is an opportunity for growth. So that's basically what I think that's the beauty of the concept of the beautiful enemy.
Yeah, I think more directly that quote is never let a good crisis go to waste.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
exactly.
a fantastic quote, right?
Yeah. Wow. See, this is why I love doing this interview, that I learned so much from not just the guest, but also all the attendee, all the student and friends, and even professional coach. We have Javier here, we have Shilling just joined from Taiwan, and everybody from Vietnam. So we very much like have a small group of global lighter. I would call us lighter, just come and chip in our light and make us brighter every day. Yeah, that's what I love. Okay, so let's go back to our interview today. Uh, yes, we are small global here for sure. This is one of the way to keep our light. I know we always have up and down time for our life. If we are so high up, then we going to use all of our energy and we will crash. So the best way would be for us would be staying balanced. Not too high, not too low. We would go back to the balance. That's why we have all of the music. The music that you heard earlier, Brian, was made by Ben and I and our group with AI and all of the amazing tour that all the smart people created for the world, and we use it to also like lecture from Tile and from the Buddha, from like Lao Shu and everybody that we create music that we use to create music for a reminding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I love. Okay, yeah. You will ask question. Yes. Would you like to ask question for Brian or the specific topic that we just talked about earlier, Shilin? Because
It's it. Am my voice okay?
yes.
Yeah. Sorry for my computer doesn't have the camera, and I'm still having the dinner. Sorry for that.
It's okay.
And I just heard about like the constructive friction, and I would like to know like till what kind of point that you will stop trying, because there is like from the very beginning there could be friction. Yeah. And there is a possibility that there could be a turning point. But there is also a possibility of, well, the other opposite side still keeping his position or her position. So I'd like to know, how do you evaluate that, um, the point that it's okay for me, I do it, I try it my best and I want to stop here.
Wow, great question.
You
That's what I
know,
love. Okay, Brian.
Shilin, I think it's such an interesting question to ponder, right? Which is where does the road turn and where does it, continue on the way that you're wanting it to go? And one of the things that, for example, I'll use a business context because personal relationships are so much more sensitive and so much more detailed. But one of the things in business, when there's a conflict in business, one of the things that I'll say to the other party a lot of times is when things are getting heated, when it seems like there's an impasse, I'll remind them, I'll say, hey, look, I know that you have nuclear weapons. I know that I have nuclear weapons. But the goal here is for neither one of us to use the nuclear weapons and to actually figure out what is it that you're trying to create, what is it that I'm trying to create, and see what it is that we're actually trying to create together. And so that's what I would like to have a conversation about. And many times when you focus on what you're trying to create together, that's where resolution comes. That's where one side's willing to concede one thing, the other side's willing to concede something else, because it's what you're trying to create together that causes the relationship to blossom. That's what causes the relationship to grow. And so when you go to the extreme, and say, I don't want the negative extreme, I want the positive extreme, that's when people are able to, see the picture a little bit more clearly. But sometimes if we just try to talk about that one issue that we're dealing with, we end up in the nuance of the discussion and we never actually see where we're trying to go, even though both parties might be trying to accomplish the same thing. And so anyways, that's one of the things that I like to do is shine light on the two sides of it, right? And neither one of us want the darkness. So how do we get the light to be drawn out? But and then, if they decide to use their nuclear weapons, that always makes it really clear to me that, okay, this isn't going to go well because they're all about destruction here. They're not trying to create something with me. So I don't know if that's helpful or if someone has another thought, but that's what came to my mind.
What came to my mind on that specific item is that I always, that's what I do with my wife. We try to talk things with cool head. So when it goes to the hot head, we make reference to the cool head conversation. Exactly the same concept I use with investing. With my cool head, I have my investment plan. So when we get hot-headed with the market, I go back to my cool-headed stage as a reminder of what is that I want to accomplish. And getting back to the beautiful enemy, you have to have that commonality that you can make reference to, because you don't want to get to the nuclear stage. It's good to have skirmishes, but not nuclear war, because in the skirmishes, that's where you get to practice.
Yeah.
You get to grow. But in a nuclear, there is total annihilation. I'm with you on that respect, totally.
Are you happy with the answers, Chilling?
Yeah, thank you very much for the cool head reference. Yeah, and with the hot head status, it's some when you mention about that, that is also a reminding for how important awareness is.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, because when I'm in the hot head, how do I know that I am in that status already, or like I'm already like attached to it without noticing. And then so the awareness still plays an important role during all this process.
You know,
Yeah.
in my coaching, I coach soccer,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a little acronym that I utilize with them to help them to remind themselves of what it is that they're doing. And I think the acronym actually applies to more than just soccer, but the
Mm-hmm.
acronym is STAT, which the term stat, we keep statistics, but stat as well in a medical realm is like, I need this stat. It's important. It's urgent. It's going to make things happen. And so that acronym STAT stands for spacing,
Mm-hmm.
talking, awareness, and technique. And so we always, you know, when they come off and they're frustrated with the way that things are going, we always just go back to that and we're like, okay, well, how's our spacing? Well, we're doing pretty good on spacing. Okay, how's our talking? You know, we can improve that a little bit. Okay, well, what are we going to talk about? And then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about. Awareness. How's our awareness? And then finally is how's our technique? And while that applies to soccer, you know, and I've changed the acronym many times in different, you know, talks that I've given, but the reality is that, you know, in relationships, our spacing becomes important, you know, that we give each other space to grow. Our talking is critical. If we're not dialoguing with each other regularly and in a healthy way, we don't find understanding with each other. Awareness, like, are we thinking about each other? Are we, you know, doing that? And then technique, are we working at getting better at helping the other person see the purpose of the relationship? Are our techniques improving? Are we being creative? You know, things like that become really important as well. And so I think it's, you know, as you talk about awareness, I think that it's such an important it's such an important thing to recognize that there's a whole being, there's a wholeness to relationships as well, um, that really can help us. But
Can I follow the Brian's sharing and ask one more question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian, you just say about like the state. So like it's like a before we're talking about states, it's like the whole team or the people that I co-work with, we need to know that there is this this checking or like this how to say that, yeah, we have like this rule we are going back to check. It's not like to certain people, like blaming certain people, but it's an overall like checking for our status, just to make the team better instead of become like blaming to someone else, someone. Because I sometimes facing the situation is we all have different trauma. So when we're mentioned about this, probably some of the member in the group will feel like he's being criticized by using this. So that's yeah, how you gonna manage that, or how does it work will be like better suitable to some condition that is more like stressful, and probably one of the person are doing like more, he's feeling frustrated, and probably he's doing something more arrows than others. But when we are checking, it's not to, yeah, not to accuse something to that person. Actually we are just want to find the balance and just refocus what we are want to go toward. Yeah.
you know, and it's interesting. You know, we've been using the word balance here a little bit, and the way that I like to describe balance is a little bit different than a scale. That
Mm-hmm.
we're not trying to balance two things that need to be exactly weighted the same, but rather if you can imagine one of those you know, one of those circus people who have like 7 plates and they're balancing all of the plates. And the way that they balance the plate is not by focusing on every plate, but rather they just spin the plate that needs to be spun at the time that it needs to be spun. And so if you go back to like the spire elements, right, that, okay, I need to spin the part of the spire elements that needs to be spun at the time that it needs to be spun, because I really can't sit there and spin 5 things all at the same time. And I think that that's, you know, to go back to the sports analogy, that's one of the reasons I love sports, is that it heightens, right? That's why we have so many movies about sports, war, and relationships, is because those are heightened levels of moments in life. And so we feel that stress, we feel that intensity. And we recently just had an experience with one of our teams where the other team had a player that was way faster than our outside back. So their attacking player was way faster. And so, of course, everybody wants to tell the outside back, well, you've just got to be faster. And so when, you know, everybody's starting to throw the arrows and everybody's wanting to point a picture, as a coach, one of my responsibilities is to bring us back to the whole. And so as we come back to the whole, what do we talk about? Look, they're not going to get faster in this game. That's not going to solve the problem. So how are we going to deal with this player that is clearly faster right now? Suddenly, by by looking at the whole and looking at the current moment and saying, how do we accomplish what we want to accomplish? Not what they might want to accomplish based on this, but how do we accomplish what we want to accomplish together? Suddenly we had solution conversation, right? And now all of a sudden we're talking about, well, I can shift over a little bit and provide some cover so that they can be able to, you know, not have to cover as much space. And, you know, all of a sudden we started solving the problem together as a team. And I think that's, you know, what stressful situations, whenever there's stress, we have to remember, what are we aspiring to be? And then how do we inspire others to continue to grow towards what it is we're trying to be, you know?
Thank you, Brian.
That's fantastic. I love this Zoom a lot, especially today, just because I have not introduced our guest yet, and he already have a lot of questions from the listener. Well, thank you, Shilin, for always raise amazing question. I love all of her questions. She is really insightful. So she always come up with, you know, this deep question that sometimes not everybody can ask, you know. But if you don't have like a big why in your life, then you may not be able to ask question like this. Okay, so back to Brian. I just want to no, not don't be sorry, because you know, I love to have this interview flow by itself. Not like I have to control, we have to do this and we have to do that, you know. But by having this flow naturally, we will have amazing conversation like we already have. So I just want to introduce Brian a little bit before we dive in more, because there's a lot of like insightful from Brian that I love to ask him as well. Welcome everybody. Thanks again for being here today. We are thrilled to have Brian with us, the founder of Creators of Opposition, and a distinguished graduate of the first M8 in the Happiness Study program, author of the Creators Opposition, Embracing Opposition. Brian applies his deep knowledge from happiness study to help authors harness their creative potential and embrace life challenge. Living in Lehi, Utah with his wife and 5 children, Brian passionately combines his role as an entrepreneur, educator, and family man. So Brian, thank you again for being here today, and we're excited to learn from your experience and insight, as we already have. Well, before I dive in more about your experience while you are learning in the MA in the MA in happiness study, I also want to learn more about your book as well. That you are one of a few students who already had the book while learning the MA in happiness program. So can you share a little bit more with us about your book? And then, like we will go back to your personal life and your personal insight. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's interesting. Sometimes we don't really realize that we have something to share until we start sharing it. And over my life, I've had a keen focus on just happiness. How does happiness happen for other people? How do we experience more joy in life? And just as I started, as I've gone through my career and things like that, I've had so many different experiences trying to build companies, trying to build teams, trying to do different things. And I guess it was about 2019, I was starting to feel a need to share a lot more. And so I started, guest lecturing at the local university. I started doing some workshops. I started, doing some private coaching, just started doing a lot of things. And all that I was noticing was my life was getting busier. And as my life was getting busier, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And I spent a lot of time, praying and trying to figure out, like, what am I trying to accomplish here? And really that's where the inspiration came for the book, is I had done a lot of journaling over my life, which, by the way, that's not the way to write a book, is you don't start with all of your journaling and try to go backwards. I learned that through my experience, but yeah, I just decided, I need to turn this into something so that I can help to magnify the message that I'm sharing, that I don't need somebody to commit to, okay, hey, Brian, I'm going to hire you for, 4 weeks worth of, private coaching, or, hey, we're going to hire you for the next 4 years to help us build our team. That I was able to take and start coalescing the ideas into a more simple form. So really the purpose of the book is to provide models for people to help them understand the process of gaining more happiness. And my summary of that is that happiness is gained by realizing our potential as creators. That everyone is a creator, everyone's trying to create something, everyone's trying to get something that's inside of themselves out. And the reality is that the moment you try to create anything, you're going to experience opposition. And so that's why it's the creator's opposition. What is the creator's opposition? Embracing that opposition. That we need to realize that it's going to be a part of our journey, and we need to embrace it, and we need to move forward with it, and we need to recognize it and acknowledge it. And that is what allows us to find the friction, the beautiful friction, for us to be able to create. And creating is what allows us to feel those moments where we can have, I call them great creator moments. Those moments in our lives where it's like, oh, I did that. Like, hey, that worked. My child just ate broccoli. This is an exciting thing. Or whatever it might be, right? Some of us, they're big moments. Other times, what seems like a little moment feels big to us because we've been working at trying to create that. We've been struggling through something that's been hard. And so when it actually comes to fruition, we feel really good about it. So yeah, so that's what my book's about, is anybody that's trying to create anything, it just gives them some models that will help them to progress in doing so.
Amazing. So you already start writing your book before you join the MA in Happiness program then?
Yeah, so I actually, it was kind of funny because our first semester, I had no idea what the MA in Happiness was going to be like. It was, my wife actually had read a news article, and she sent it to me and said, hey, I think that you're probably going to want to do this. And so anyways, we get to the first semester, and Tal starts teaching, Tal starts talking. And it was interesting for me because, I mean, Tal was using examples that are in my book, like stories that are in my book. And I started going, huh, this is really interesting. So I ended up even sending Tal, I just sent him a copy of my book. I actually have two books. There's another one that's an illustrated guide to creating through opposition. And so it has pictures and things because I think visually it helps us sometimes. But yeah, so I sent those off to him because for me, what the MA in happiness ended up doing for me is it ended up giving me it just ended up deepening my my ability to teach the principles that I was teaching because things that I had discovered, I now had more science to back up. Things that I was teaching, I had now more references to be able to utilize. So it just really just deepened my ability to teach what I was already trying to teach, to share what I was already trying to share. And so it made the course just it made the whole experience just really enjoyable for me because I'm just deep diving and learning more about what I'm already trying to do and be. And so it was like putting Miracle Grow on something at the right ratio, I guess, for me at that time.
Wow, that's amazing. Also thank you to your wife.
Yeah,
She know you.
yeah. Yeah, she sent it to me. It was a Sunday morning. She sent it to me, and I was enrolled Sunday night. So um, she knew what the fertilizer was she knew what my tribe was. She knew the type of people I wanted to interact with and be around. So
That's amazing. See, that's something that only our loved one or people who really care about us know us. Because we always have this self that other people look at us and they were like, oh, you are that person, but we are not, you know. We have
yeah,
the inner self, which is our essence, and only people who truly know us would would see that part of us, And
yeah.
you have this lovely wife who can see your essence. That's a blessing.
Oh, very, very much so.
Yeah. Um, Also, Shilling was mentioned about the journaling club. We have the journaling club in Access A. I don't know if you're aware of that club. I was in that
I'm,
club as well, but I don't enjoy the club a lot. Yeah.
yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that club.
Mm,
Sounds like a good club, though.
yeah.
I teach a lot about journaling, so I love journaling.
Mm. So earlier you mentioned about you had been journaling a lot. How long have you been journaling? Because I love journaling as well, but I'm on and off all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've journaled my whole life. My oldest journal is from the time that my oldest journal is from the time I was 8 years old. Um, but yeah, journaling's just something it's an important way for us to um, to really connect with ourselves and to be able to, work through thoughts and to, discover more. I think it's a great learning tool, a great reflection tool. Um, you know, and so yeah, been journaling for
Mm,
a long time.
yeah.
And just so you know, all of us are off and on with journaling. And so like one of the things that I try to help people realize is that, we don't succeed in journaling by, being 100% of what we thought that it should be. We succeed in journaling by just doing it. And then as you do it, you start to realize how it helps you because you journaling is different than me journaling. And all of us want to journal in different ways. And, some people journal because they have a historian heart and they want to record events. Other people journal because they, are experiencing trauma and they're trying to say the words of what they're experiencing. Other people are, just trying to capture thoughts. So I think journaling is a very personal journey as well, and we need to recognize why are we doing what we're doing, and when we know why we're doing what we're doing, it helps us, to accomplish what we're trying to do. So
Wow, that's really powerful. Thank you for saying that. I feel I will give myself permission to be human,
yeah.
not asking for perfection. I see Shilling also raising her hand. I think that she really wanna open the journaling club now.
Yeah,
Shilling,
yeah. Actually, we do have like writing club, and that is for the story about your own self story writing, and it's gonna become a editing collection story and become a book. So it's a writing club, and what I'm now initiating is a journaling club. Yeah, so I'm so excited for when I hear you like mention about journaling, and that's also something helps me a lot. So that's why I know from the very beginning I have a lot of off and ons. As Jasmine mentioned, I do have those process and feeling fair, and also feeling frustrated for seeing not being able to keep on. Yeah. So another like a second arrow when I notice the status, and then the second arrow keeps like shooting to myself, blaming me didn't do it well. Yeah.
Don't
So
point at yourself.
yeah, so when you mentioned that it's a great reflecting tools, and also you mentioned about those small moments that we can journal inside. So I would like to know, because the journaling club is going to initiate, and I'm waiting for the final approval. I think they will be in sometime in September, and I would like to know if there is possible, because I want to invite different people to share the journaling experience, and just to share everyone that it's okay to be on off and on, and what you have just said is how we succeed in journaling is just by doing it. Is I think it's very important. So it's okay that I can invite you to be the club guest and share.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I haven't get the date yet, so I'll send you the message and talk about it
Sounds
separately.
great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah. Please also invite me and Javier.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm just shy Javier. um, it's great for I have never thought like I want to share what I do with other people, but I was like I don't know if I'm good enough. But everybody have their own insights and their experience, and by learning from Brian, somehow I just feel like we should go and share. Just because he mentioned that in 2019 that he started feeling like he want to share, and he did all of this passionately, and it's make his life change from then. So I want to go back to your creators of position a little bit. So in your book, the creators opposition, embracing opposition, you discussed harnessing creative potential. Could you give an example of how someone can practically apply this concept in their daily life?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I talk about trees a lot. That's one thing you discover about me in my book is how much I love trees. But you look at the creative potential that's found in a seed. Well, that seed, all of us are like the seed. So, Jasmine, you have something to share. Like you have purpose, you have meaning in your life, and that's represented in a seed. And so when you take that seed and you place it in the ground, well, we call that a planting. But yet many times we see people in life that they look at that experience and they say, I've been buried alive. I've experienced that in my life, where I feel buried alive. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like there's all this pressure that's on me. I feel like I can't see the light. All of those kind of experiences we're all having. And what happens is that a lot of times our dreams die, because of the way we see that planting. A lot of people feel the pressure. They feel the failure, they feel the friction, they feel the heat, they feel the lack of light and direction, and they say, I can't do it. But it's interesting because if that seed will view it, if they'll just have that little bit of a paradigm shift, that little shift to say, no, I've been planted. And so I feel something inside of myself. I feel a potential. And so I'm going to try to get that potential to be realized. I'm going to try to get it out. Well, for that seed, you think about what that seed actually goes through. It goes through a process where it's basically heated up, and then eventually it will tear itself open as it disintegrates. And as it tears open through the disintegration process, then it has a little shoot come up. Now, in English, we actually call that shoot a spire. And that spire starts to push itself upward. And imagine that day, right? Imagine that day when that thing finally pokes out of the ground, where it's worked through this environment that seems to be pushing against it. But in reality, it's using that heat, it's using the nutrients, it's using everything that is there, to create, its potential. And so it shoots out of the ground. And I love the imagery, because sometimes in life, that's what it feels like, is like we're trying to grow. And we have this moment where it's like, oh, I can finally breathe again. I'm out. But of course, you and I both know that, oh no, little plant, all you've just done is expose yourself to new oppositions, because now the rains are going to beat on you, and now you're going to be exposed to new pests, and animals might come try to eat you. And like there's all sorts of new opposition that is coming their way. But yet that tree continues to grow. And then as you look at trees, one of the things I love is they're all unique. Like even if they're in the same little cluster, they're all unique. They all grow their own way. They all do their own thing. And, everyone that might be listening even to this interview, everyone's trying to engage in the world of happiness. And all of our journeys are going to be unique. We're all going to be different. We're all going to share in our own way, but yet we all can produce fruit. We all can produce something, through our growth journey. And so I guess the practical way that all of us can be able to do this is by just building the paradigm. And I've watched that over and over and over again with people, as if we'll just have a creator paradigm, then we'll start recognizing that all of us have something that we're trying to create. And so now, what is the process that we go about doing that? How do we get our creative potential out? And it starts with that mindset. It starts with that type of paradigm.
Oh, I love it. But I never thought of bury alive quote that you
Yeah,
mentioned. That is
yeah.
really, how did you come up with that? It just when you start writing your book and it came to you, or you already see it before you write your
Yeah.
book? That's
Yeah. So
amazing.
that's the funny thing is that, like, I've loved trees. I have two kids that are named after trees.
Mm.
I've loved trees my whole life. And I don't know, like, it's like, when did I learn what I know? Like, it's really hard to pinpoint and say there wasn't some aha moment that came for me in my life. It's just something that I've just come to live that way. I've come to see things that way. And, it's interesting. As I was writing the book, I have a model that's called the creation model. And so the creation model goes like this. It says character creates motivation, motivation creates movement, movement creates momentum, momentum creates opportunity, and opportunity creates result. And the greatest result in the cycle is that our character has now changed. And so you're going through this cycle. All of us are going through this cycle all the time. And the interesting thing is I wrote that when I was a 21-year-old kid. It was a model that came to me, and I was like, wow, this just makes sense. And so I've utilized that throughout my life. But you know, that cycle is so powerful for us to realize, because if you know who you really are, and you know why you're doing what you're doing, when you confuse those two things together, that's your character. That's what makes up character. It's who you really are and why you're doing the things you're doing. And when those two things fuse together, it creates something. It expresses your appetites, your desires, your passions. It expresses who you are, what you want to accomplish. And that shows up in the form of motivation, because our character creates motivation. It expresses itself. It wants to create something. And so as it expresses that motivation, it leads us to do something. And then as we do something, we start to create momentum, and then momentum creates opportunities for us. And then those opportunities, out of those come a result. And then the interesting thing is this creation cycle, I could also call it a destruction cycle, because one of the two is happening. Like there's no sitting still. Like creation is in constant motion, right? Even our bodies at the molecular level, they're in constant motion. Creation is always in motion, and destruction is all about stopping motion or destroying motion. But creation is all about motion. And it's funny how creation even uses destruction to create. And so the biggest thing about the creation cycle is our life is lived in transition. This is one of the things I love about sport. Sport is all about transitions. How do we respond to what is happening to us? And as we go through this cycle and we get a result, sometimes we get a result of, let's say that we decided to take a test, and there's 30 points that are possible on this test, and we get 2 out of 30. Well, you can define that however you want. But so many people will define that as failure, and they'll say, I'm not good at spelling. And so what did they just do? They just fed their character with a negative. Well, another person could say, wow, I got 2 out of 30. And they could say, wow, I have a lot of room to grow here. Like I could actually get 4 out of 30, and I've gotten 100% better than I was before. And that's not a very high bar to get to 4 out of 30. I think I can do this. Well, what did they just feed their character with? They just fed it with a positive. And so the cycle is creating a much different way based upon how we transition from a result to a to feed our character. And that's the transition of life. And that's why paradigms become so important. Like, how are we building our paradigms? And the more paradigms we can build, the quicker we can shift based upon the circumstance that's happening to us. And if we can shift quickly to a different paradigm, then we can feed our character with something more positive. We can provide positive nutrients rather than negative nutrients.
That's amazing. I feel goosebumps when the minute that you share your the model that you came up with when you was not, it's not like, I feel like it's not you came up with, you just pull it down from, you know, like your your multiple life experience. And that's so powerful, because I also learned not the similar model, but is it's similar in a way that it start with a result. You know, it's similar to not just like that model, but there's a model in Buddhism that we were learning during our MA program. And the Buddha said that everything starts with a result too, you know. So it's quite powerful when you have that realization when you was 21 years old.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you
Yeah.
share that in your book as well, or do you often talk about that
Yeah.
model?
Yeah. So there's a nice little circular model, and yeah, so that's one of the models. I have a handful of models that I share in the book that just help people to remember the base, right? Like what does creation look like? I have the creator's pyramid that actually shows people, how do I go through the process of creation? And so if I feel like I'm not being creative, if I feel like my creative efforts are not happening, I'm not creating anything, well, what's missing, right? So there's a foundation, then there's the next layer, then there's the next layer, then there's the next layer. It's interesting. One of my layers, Jasmine, deep learning. That's one of the things that we talk about, is that we have our creative operating system, which leads us to our resources, and of course the key resource is our relationships. That leads us to deep learning, which leads to continued success, which leads to great creator moments in our life. And so anytime that you're trying to create and you can't figure out why it's not working, you just go back to the model. Like, is my creative operating system working? Well, if it's not, then how do I reboot? How do I reboot my creative operating system? How do I reinstall it? How do I, and it's interesting, these rewords are so powerful in the English language, right? But you see them come up over and over again. But yeah, as you get going, okay, well, if my creative operating system's working, well, then am I connecting to resources? And the key resource is my relationship. So am I connecting with those? Am I interacting with resources in my life? And if I am, well, am I harvesting learning from those things? And then, of course, the harvesting of learning, am I experiencing success through my learning? And that's where the transitions actually are happening, because when you talk about continued success, well, continued success doesn't mean that everything's going, peaches and roses and honey. It's not that. What it continued success is that, am I harvesting from my learning? Is there a new attribute I've developed? Did I develop more patience? Did I develop more understanding? Did I build a new paradigm? Did I, like, what came out of this that changed who I am? And if we're harvesting those things, then every now and then we're going to recognize that, well, oh, wait, I just harvested. Well, now I just had a great creator moment because I feel good about something. And that's how continued success happens in our lives. But yeah, so there's just some models that help to understand the creation process. And then I just try to break those models down into detail and utilize creation to teach those things. I talk a lot about trees. I talk a lot about, just the things that are all around us. That I just led a tour to Alaska, and what a beautiful, beautiful place. But it's interesting because no matter where I go in the world, like, I see a different part of creation, and it's all beautiful and it all teaches different things. You look at the giant bamboo and how the giant bamboo, like, you plant that, and for 5 years, there's no growth. But then once you hit that year number 5, where you sit there and you nourish and boom, it just shoots up and it grows at an incredible rate. And and so, yeah, looking at creation, like, am I the giant bamboo or am I a weed? There's lots of things you can learn, and you've got to figure out which one you are at that time in your life.
Yeah. I got goosebumps and chills. I love the fact that I love about plant, and I love story about plantation and tree as well. I also love the story that you mentioned about the bamboo. Very much like the seed and the soil, the soil and all the condition that came to either destroy the seed or support the seed. I love all of that story as well. But it's just nature. Nature teaches us a lot. And but we open for question. I see that Shilin had a lot of question. Maybe if you are available, you can ask this question as well. Shilin, interact with Brian, and then everybody in the Zoom. If you have question for Brian, you're welcome to raise your hand and interact with Brian. I have a list of questions that I can ask Brian, but it's not about me. It's everybody came together and we built a Zoom and we make the interview amazing. So let's see.
So it looks like one of our questions is, have you ever been in a low mood or depressed in your growing up? And what would you do to be with that little low mood to reboot? And so that's interesting because when we're experiencing depression, when we're experiencing low moods, things like that, I think one of the things that, of course, I've experienced that. We all experience those kind of feelings. And it's interesting how, one of the things that we should do when we're feeling that depressed moment is we should say, okay, well, am I willing to use my ability to act to connect to a resource in my life? And one of the key resources is relationships. And I've learned that in my life. Like if I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling low, things like that, one of the things I need to do is connect with someone else. And then it's interesting because over my life, I've also learned that in my efforts to connect to somebody else, it's also interesting to me how when I connect with that person, many times I have something to share with that person. And so here I've gone from, okay, I need some help. And so I'm going to connect to somebody. And then when I connect with them, suddenly I share something. And so I've gone from being the one needing help to where I'm offering the help. And that's one of the amazing things about creation is that, all the interconnectedness of creation applies to us. And, that when we go to connect with somebody else and we feel like we're probably stealing or taking something from them, we actually many times are offering something at the same time. And so when we can see things that way, that our efforts to reach out to somebody else, well, it allows them to share their abilities as well. And so it creates this cycle of growth that's a pretty amazing thing. And so I think connecting with others is one of the key things that I've learned in my life is important to do whenever we're feeling depressed or struggling or anything like that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I also learned that from my teacher and other master before too. Especially, I think Tao mentioned about that as well in one of the Zoom call. He was like, when you feel super low or depressed, you should share. You should open Zoom or like open your camera or like do something and share, say something. Start talking to people. We will be able to shift our paradigm as well, from sad to happy and thankful and blah blah blah. So
Yeah,
we are thankful to people and human around us. They help us changing our paradigm.
yeah,
I even learned from one of my clients that like about her grandparents. They are very holistic and spiritual. So her grandpa did all of this spiritual energy things around the house. He tried to pick up on like positive energy around house, and then I also learned about the bell ring also can help us shift our paradigm in a quick second. So I applied that to my parent and my kid, and it's actually worked. It's worked
yeah,
that my dad forgot something and we don't know where he misplaced his document. So I use the bell and I ring the bell inside at home, telling everybody that after we ring the bell, then we will find his document, and we did. We was able to find his document. And it's everything changed. However, without having this insight from my client, I would not be able to apply that in my house or in my family life.
Yeah,
So
and it's interesting, Jasmine, because what you're touching on is you're touching on that all of the spire elements are the things that are going to help us. You've got to spin one of those plates. And many times relationships are a key resource. So many times relationships are this plate that we need to spin when we're struggling with anything. But the reality is that you talked about a spiritual resource, right? That's why every religion, every spiritual teacher will teach you to dialogue with a higher power. So that's a form of dialogue. It's a form of connecting to a relationship. That's what spirituality is. Physical. There's doctors that will tell you, look, go on a run, change the physical nature of your body, listen to music, talk, journal, write. There's lots of ways that we can take action physically to change what we're doing. Intellectual, go learn something, read, watch a movie, listen to a podcast. Those things can be able to change the way that you feel. Relationship, we've already talked about, and then emotional, like cry, like share your emotion, yell into your pillow. Like it's okay to feel the emotion, and so feel it, like be present in it. And so many times, it's if we want to switch it to the opposite, right? If we want to go from sad to happy, from depressed to inspirational, we just need to look at what plate of the spire elements should we spin. And that will always, like, if we have our creative operating system working, well, what it's going to do is it's going to actually inspire us as to which one of those plates we should spin. And all of us know the moment that we decide to think about it and take action, we'll know which plate to spin. And so then we just have to have the courage to spin it.
wow, that's amazing. Another very insightful. Like Ben says, so much wisdom in the Zoom call. I never thought of that spy that broad way. I know how the spy work, but by you, Brian just mentioned, um, I just feel I learned something new from you. Thank you so much for teaching us. I see Shilin raise her hand first. I will invite Shilin first and then Javier. Hello, Shilin. Welcome back.
Um, Thank you, Brian, for sharing, and thank you, Jasmine, for mentioning about that bell. That's a good idea. Yeah, and I like to follow the sharing when you mentioned about in a low mood and um, to be connected and share about the things that I'm having at the moment. And I want to ask a little bit more on that part about sharing, because as because I working with a special needs group, and also some of the people that are like have difficulties in their family. So there will be some kind of situation that is the family or the people that I constantly connected with are not as that good for sharing in a low mood. Somebody will just spiral down when I was sharing. Yeah. So um, when I was, if that is the case for the person that I know, do you have any advice or any other or like how do you verify that is better it's a suitable shared person before, for example, I can do it verification before I go become the low mood status. So how do you verify that part, or can you give any advice on that?
So if I understand what you're asking is that so you have this special needs person who you have to interact with their family and you feel depressed every time you have to interact. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's for this person, the person who has his probably his or her family is not that positive thinking. So when he or her sharing her low black dog mode, and then it goes spiral down or it goes worse because they might using the other is the negative way to respond. The person said, oh, you should do something, you shouldn't do like that, things like this. So how to
Yeah.
verify the channel for sharing in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are difficult, extreme cases, right? And it's interesting how, um, how nature, creation itself teaches us
Mm.
ways that we can be able to approach those situations. So I don't know if you've ever been somewhere and you're like, how in the world did that plant grow there?
Mm-hmm,
How in the
yeah.
world did this flower bloom there?
Mm.
And as you look at those situations, you start recognizing that their desire and their power to create was more powerful than the environment that they found themselves in. And so what you're needing to do in those situations, without talking in detail, right, today, my just kind of the broad brushstroke of things would be that in those situations, what I would be focused on is I would be focused on the person that is in the difficult situation of helping them see and build mindsets that will help them understand, how do I bloom in this difficult environment? How do I take root even though there's not a richness of nutrients? Because not everyone in this world has what I had, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I come from a family where my mom and dad loved each other. We had 10
Mm-hmm.
siblings. We all loved each other. So we're in this rich environment. I have both sets of grandparents. I have great grandparents. I have aunts and uncles. I have like there was richness in my environment. So of course it should be easier for me to bloom. But yet there's other people that are in situations like you're talking about where like literally they have their own self and
Mm-hmm.
everything around them seems difficult. And so we need to recognize that the light that we share with them, when you have your interaction with them, the light you give them, the nutrients you give them, the water you give them, like that is so critical. And so we need to be super positive with them. We need to be giving. We need to be giving even when it feels like it's draining us,
Mm-hmm.
because we can see that if I can give them this, that might give them power to go home and bloom in the environment that they're in right now, that they can keep that positive mindset, that they can stay on that paradigm that they were thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Anyways, that would be my broad brushstroke advice in that situation.
Thank you, Brian.
I love that too. And based uh based on what Brian shared, I remember Ben often share about this the picture of a forest of let's say just like a forest. You will see maybe like oak tree or like certain type of tree, We live in this Pacific Northwest where we have a lot of giant redwood and
Mm-hmm.
like pine tree and all Christmas tree type. So Ben often said that similar to what Brian said, but in the example of like the forest, if you have a pine tree growing in the forest, and you have like a forest of pine tree, all of the pine tree will equally grow and up to their ultimate scale. But if you have the pine tree in your backyard and just one pine tree, the same type pine tree, but if the pine tree grow in your backyard, it doesn't have the same capacity and same potential as if it grow in the pine tree forest. You know,
Yeah,
have like
and
similar
I was
like that.
just And I was just up in Alaska, and up in Alaska, right, in the tundra that is Alaska, you know, there's pine trees that only grow to 5 feet. But it's a miraculous feat that they've actually grown to 5 feet. Like I'm more inspired by that tree than the pine tree that's growing in my neighbor's yard that's, you know, huge. Because like I look at that tree and I'm like, how is it growing? Like the growing season is so short, like the potential nutrients are so little, you know, the extremity of the weather is, but yet it grows. And so like sometimes even though it's not going to grow as tall, sometimes it actually can be more inspiring, which is why we see a lot of movies about people that grew in terrible circumstances, right? Like that's where Pursuit of Happiness comes from, is a guy that loses his marriage, a guy that's living in the subway, like he has nothing, but then he's somehow able to blossom in the middle of New York City and become an incredible investment, you know, banker. And wow, here we are, you know, like
Yeah,
he has a movie about him.
yeah. And I just remember Helen Keller as well, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that. In fact, last week I had this conversation with one of the teacher. I forgot if she is a middle school teacher or high school, but she's also a coach, like sport trainer at the school as well. And so recently she had to take care of her nephew because his mom who is her younger sister was not capable of taking care of her son. So my client had to take care of her nephew now, and he had like mental problem or not developing well according to what she said. She was so upset with him, and her life was driving crazy. Like her whole family life were driving crazy by this little boy. And she knew about Helen Keller too, but what she know about Helen Keller was just opposite than the idea of just like embracing the new kid into her family. So it's not like everybody know about Helen Keller or the pine tree forest, or like just seem what I mean is not everybody know about Helen Keller would have this insightful or have the understanding about uh like difficult kid or special kid, and how to raise special kid like Helen Keller or your student. So that's why we need expert like Brian, to share with us how to take care of our kid and our student and our loved one as well. Yeah. Thank you, Shilin. I see Javier raised his hand earlier. Can you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
I just wanted to share a story in reference to how to get well when you are down by helping others. This is the story. I'm a Catholic, and in the Catholic tradition, we have saints. One of the saints is John of God, Juan de Dios, John of God. As a young man, he was poor and he enrolled in the army. And he had a good relationship with his priest. And then he went to war. And when he returned, he came back what we know now, PTS, post-traumatic syndrome. At the time, in the 1500s, that was considered a crazy person. So what they did is they put him in an asylum, and the treatment for that is that they chain you. They keep you in chains, and everyone is going crazy because they don't know what's going on. So his priest came to see him and told him, help those who are worse off than you. And he started helping those individuals in the asylum, and he progressed to a point that they released him. And he ended up founding the Hospitalier, which is an order that takes care of sick people in hospital because of that. So I just wanted to share that story in reference that is when you help others, even though you are in trouble, you also are helping yourself, and you tend to flourish and you tend to become wholesome. So I just wanted to make that point, since you were talking about that, Brian.
Yeah, I love it, Javier.
Yeah, I love it too. Javier always have great, insightful story or study that he learned and he have been accumulates for years. So that's why I love this Zoom call a lot, because not only I get to learn from, our guests, I am also learning from our you know, like our insightful listener as well. And let's see, yeah. And Shilling always come up with like great question, and I know she had a passion for her student. That's why she always have like this question for not just Brian but for all the guests as well. And it's opened my mind when I learn about that question as well. So I'm so thankful for learning from all of you. I know the time is coming up. I have another question for Brian. So this question I ask everybody every week. If you could be the host, and you are in my position today, who would you like to interview in our MA program?
In our program, who would I like to? There's so many people that I would like to interview. Have you interviewed Pedro?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think Pedro's doing some interesting things with his own effort to spread happiness, and I think he has a lot of great insight. Yeah, I think he's somebody that I would, if I was the host, I think I would interview. I could pick more if you need me to pick more.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I
But
mean,
that's the one that's coming off my list today.
okay, Pedro. Well, I'm asking this question because I seriously want you to become the host and interview your best, your like best partner. But I know that we all have the hat team. That's why I was asking you about your hat team. Because I was hoping that one of your hat team member was the guest before you, so I can invite them to like one of them to be your host today. So there would be a better interact among the student.
Yeah, I think you do a great job though, Jasmine. I think that, and the more you do this, the better you're probably getting at it. And so one day you might, who knows, but you're maybe running the happiness cable network, and being the host of all of those interviews that need to happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you that you see a beautiful picture of me and my bright future. I mean, I told everybody too that I love to do the interview, but at the same time, I understand that everybody have this chemistry. Um, and I was talking to Ben. I was like, would you like to be the host today? Because I have never talked to Brian before. I saw Brian, but I have never had the same hat team with him, or in the same discussion room.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
was
Ben
so
and I
glad.
definitely were. We definitely we crossed paths a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned that too when I invited you. That's when I learned that you and Ben had been in the same hat team or like discussion group for a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what I love to do. And well, before we go, I'm so thankful to you again for accepting the invitation to become our guest. And I'm so thankful to learn from you, from all of your wisdom. I really love tree and all of the lesson behind um, the tree, and like planting and seed and the flower and the farming. Nature teach us a lot of things, and so you like I feel like you have done a fabulous job and fantastic job to share with other people about the farming process, because it seems easy, but not everybody would understand the method and the meaning behind the farming. And each of us are the seed, whether we are good seed or bad seed, but we can always grow up to our full potential if we decide to. That's what I learned from you today. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we will be able to connect again when you become the host. And also I hope Shilling have her club soon, so I can be able to learn from you again, Brian, and potentially from Javier and Shilling. Yeah. Thank you, and have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are we going to have the music?
Music? Would you like to listen to the music? Okay.
Yeah, I would actually like the song that you were playing in the beginning.
The song in the beginning. Happy Bachata or Deep Learning? Either salsa or Happy Bachata. Maybe Happy Bachata.
Okay.
Yep. Let's
Let's
have some
go.
bachata.
That's cool.
Wait, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. We will have some dancing before we go.
Diving deep into happiness, that's the key. Living life in harmony, feeling free. Whisper, guiding every step we take. A joyful life's the goal we make. Spiritual peace, our worries released. Physical strength in every beat. Intellectual light, relational ties. Emotional waves where happiness flies. Whole being, we rise together. In this rhythm, love forever. Spirit lifts us high above. And in the dance of life, we find our love. Nurturing minds with thoughts so bright. In relationships we find our light. Every step a joyful stride. In the spiral of life we rise, we glide. Through the heart and soul we roam. Finding peace, making life our home. In wisdom's light we greet the day. With love that never fades away. Whole being, we rise together. In this rhythm, love forever. Spirit lifts us high above. In the dance of life we find our love. Whole being, we rise together. In this rhythm, love forever. Spirit lifts us high above. In the dance of life we find our love. Nurturing minds with thoughts so bright. In relationships we find our light. Every step a joyful stride. In the spiral of life we rise, we glide. Through the heart and soul we roam. Finding peace, making life our home. In wisdom's light we greet the day. With love that never fades away. Here's to joy, let it flow. In the rhythm of life, let happiness grow. Whole being, complete and whole. In every beat we find our soul.